welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. Today we are going through sector number 451 with the return of Nick from Buds, Bros, and Superheroes. You've heard him in the past. Most recently, you heard him on the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles retrospective episode. Nick, welcome back and welcome to the co-host chair.
Thank you so very much for having me. Very excited.
Always like having Nick on because much like the rest of our regular ongoing hosts, he is a professional. He makes it very easy to edit. So always excited to have Nick on especially. Let's jump right into the news. According to The Hollywood Reporter, this one was on Twitter. Some people were celebrating, including myself. Some were seeing this as a positive sign for the Snyderverse, but Ava DuVernay's New Gods and James Wan's The Trench films are no longer being developed at Warner Brothers. Was this kind of a surprise to you, Nick?
Yes and no. So yes in the fact that the New Gods got canceled. No in the fact that The Trench isn't coming out. From the very beginning, when I first heard that news, I was iffy on it. I was just like, okay, yay, we're getting a Trench movie like we thought we needed. So the fact that it's not coming, I'm not going to say I'm like, yay, I'm happy that he's not doing it, but it was never really on my slate of like stuff that even made sense or stuff I wanted to see.
It always felt like a studio move to me, and I know back when they announced it, Kelly and I were saying, it's cool to learn more about the Trench, see how they ended up being the way they are, because they weren't just creatures that evolved from the deep as like in the comics, but instead in the film, this billion-dollar movie, they set these up as creatures that were once more human-like, and they didn't really tell that story, but I always felt like it was the studio going, all right, well, this thing made $1 billion. What can we spin off from here? Instead of going with the obvious, like, okay, let's give one of the villains a spin off or tell their story. They went with The Trench. And I was like, okay, maybe they know something I don't. Maybe there's some story that James Wan or Jeff Johns pitched to them. But it's one of those, like, it made $1 billion. Let's try to make more.
It definitely seemed like they're trying to capitalize because, yeah, he did this movie and I think he did one of the Fast and the Furious, but James Wan is more known as a horror kind of guy with like The Conjuring and things like that. So I think they were trying to capitalize on him becoming their horror guy. But at the same time, like the brilliance of some of his movies and the brilliance of horror genre is that they're cheap. You know, you don't need to put tens of thousands of people or CGI them in trench makeup and do all that kind of stuff. It's like, it just makes no sense. Like, all right, we're going to get him to make a $200 million horror movie. It made no sense. If you're going to get him as your horror guy, just put him in a creepy house alone. And every now and then have, cause I keep thinking of that shot from The Conjuring where Patrick Wilson is standing outside with his wife and he looks at her and there's nothing. And then when he looks back, there's a lady hanging. It's like, come on, how expensive could that be? Let's just get more of that going rather than trench creatures running around for reasons unknown.
I don't expect The Trench to come back at this point as far as a solo film. I think this is as dead could be. If they want to put him on into the horror route, as you said, even if you don't want to bring him back for more Conjuring films, which I'm sure they're going to keep doing those because people keep paying to see them, and that's great. That's fine. They're loving it. But there are other corners of the DC universe that I think are better suited for his take on horror. Are there other comic adaptations in the DC universe that you think might be better for James Wan?
Well, yeah, I would automatically go Justice League Dark. I know it's a sore subject because, Guillermo del Toro is supposed to do it, and who knows if he still will or if the HBO thing's happening, but kind of the mix of horror and action seemed to be right in his wheelhouse. So I think right off the top of my head, that's what I'd go with. I'm sure there's deeper cuts, but
I don't think it's over for Wan, especially since he has Aquaman 2 on the corner, or right around the corner, and he did make them a lot of money. So even though The Trench is done and hardcore Aquaman film fans might have been really excited for this, I think there's going to be better things on the horizon for him and for the Aquaman universe. But the New Gods film by DuVernay would have explored New Genesis and built out the DCEU We did get a tweet from Ava that said, quote, and I had to find it on Userama because I'm blocked by Ava. She said, quote, Tom, I loved writing New Gods with you. I'm upset that the saga of Barda, Scott, Granny, Highfather, and the Furies ends this way. Diving into Kirby's fourth world was the adventure of a lifetime that can't be taken away. Thank you for your friendship, and remember, hashtag Darkside is, end quote. Sounds a little bitter. Sounds like it was not her or Tom's choice. Every time I heard Tom on Word Balloon, he said, no, we're still working on it. It's still coming. I'm still working on the script. He seemed really positive about it. He never spoke ill of the Snyder Cut. He was positive about that too. But it was Ava who kept blocking anyone that would ask her neutral to positive questions. I got blocked for asking her if she planned on using Ray Porter as Darkseid in her film. And this was before the Snyder Cut was ever confirmed to be coming out. And I immediately got blocked by Ava. Do you think that the success of the Snyder Cut caused the cancellation of New Gods?
Well, one, that seems very excessive for her to block you over that.
And people didn't believe me either because they're like, you must have said something. And I'm like, no, here it is. And I found it, sent it right up. And I'm like, look, it's right there.
Yeah, wow. I don't really know. This one, like I said earlier, this one hurt because I was really excited for this because it's not stuff that I know a lot of personally. I haven't read a lot about the New Gods or New Genesis. I do know that it's a King Kirby creation, and what I do know of it the most comes from Superman the Animated Series, and that's where I first got my introduction to everything like that. But to see it up on the screen was going to be great. I don't see how the Snyder Cut would have affected that, though, negatively. If anything, it would be like pushing it forward because all of a sudden we have a live action Granny Goodness, and it's like, wait, I want to know more about that. And then they could just pull out the card like, just wait, look what we got coming down the road. I don't know. I can't imagine why that happened. You're right, though. She sounds bitter.
There were so many questions that came out of this when they canceled it, because if Warner Brothers is truly still on the side of we're not going to have any more projects from Zack in the DC universe, as they have been saying, they've been stating that, which to me doesn't mean a lot because it's up to AT&T and HBO Max at the end of the day. Warner Brothers is and forever will continue to say that they don't plan on doing any more with Zack. But if AT&T is looking at Warner Brothers' budget and going, okay, so after this success that is the Snyder Cut, there are pieces moving, maybe there's contracts being negotiated right now, we need to cut these projects to put that budget towards this proven success, which is the Snyder Cut right now. And that's the connection I'm seeing, the only one I'm seeing right now, as to how that could have negatively affected these films, because it is kind of weird timing that they would cancel those after the success of the Snyder Cut. And it seems like they're probably going to cancel some more. Next one being the Amazon's project. I can't remember if it was a show or a movie, but if they're trying to make room in the budget, that one's going to go next, I think.
It's crazy to think of them trying to get room in the budget because they're really just being tight-fisted at this point because they have the money, in my opinion, to say, all right, Zack, here, you just take all this and go. We'll put you over there, and then we'll still do what we want over here. And I think that we were either talking about it, but the audience is smart enough to know, oh, that's two different Batmans. With the announcement that Pattinson is going to be on Earth too, it's not a surprise. It makes sense. I can deal with multiple Batmans, but I can't imagine that they're not going to push the Snyder movement further with what you said, with all that success. But why can't they also just continue to do what they quote unquote feel is the better move on their side?
And that's the other part that I was also really confused about, because Warner Brothers keeps pitching the multiverse, and they keep talking about how we're about to have 3 different Batman on the big screen. We have all of these different properties that can exist on the CW and on HBO Max and on the big screen. Yet, if they cancel this, because this is what some people were saying, is they didn't want to have 2 dark sides now, 2 prominent versions of them to confuse anyone. That to me seems like the least likely reason, because if they so much cared about the multiverse, they could have the Tom King, Ava DuVernay dark side, and then they can have the Snyderverse dark side, and not really, I don't see a big issue between those, because people at this point understand that there are different versions of these characters. If Tom King was going to write Darkseid like he did him in Mr. Miracle, it would have been a tonally lighter villain. You have him in Mr. Miracle eating a salad bowl. I don't know what you call it, where it comes with the little carrots and it comes with a little side of ranch and all of the whole party bowl thing. He's eating one of those on Apocalypse, and it's meant to be a humorous scene. And I bet you he would have put that in there. And that's not the same Darkseid that we have seen now for the first time on live action. So I think there would have been some conflict there, but I think they would have been okay with having that multiverse of the two characters, of two Granny Goodnesses, of Furies, of maybe the Sod probably would have been in that universe too. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on maybe that's what they were a little nervous about?
I do. I really do believe that because it's always been that way with them, or at least as far as I know, because I just found out that Smallville was supposed to be a young Batman story, like pre-Gotham all the way back then. But then they were like, no, we have too many Batmans going on and we don't want to confuse people. Let's make young Superman instead.
Huh.
And then they ended up making Gotham because, money. But we have so many different Batmans going on right now because in Titans, there's his own Batman. Yeah, we don't see him in the costume too much, but Game of Thrones fans know that Sir Jorah Mormont is Batman in that universe. Why can't we have that guy and Pattinson and Batfleck all just doing their own things? We understand it. And I don't think it's a hard sell to the general population now, because the idea or the convention of a multiverse is something that's leaked into other areas. Like it's a Family Guy episode, for fuck's sake. You know what I mean? Like that idea won't blow people's mind and like, wait, there's two Batman. Like, no. So I think that they're really afraid to do it, and in their heads that is the thing of like, no, there's one Batman and that's it.
You mentioned you were a little bit disappointed that the New Gods film got canceled. Were you excited to witness the world of Apocalypse explored and seeing all of these characters, the Kirby characters, really fleshed out on the big screen? Or like just in general seeing them? Or were you like really believing in Tom King and Ava DuVernay's vision of the characters in that world?
Definitely the former, not that the latter was going to be bad, because seeing anything through somebody else's lens is kind of half the fun, I like kind of going to a movie and going, that's not how I would have done it, but that was a cool way of doing it. Great. But kind of on the former, like you said even earlier, Mr. Miracle, can you imagine that? Like, what a weird costume, but it's fucking badass. I mean, he looks cool,
yeah.
But at the same time, we haven't gone that full batshit bananas on screen. Like, that is a head-to-toe weird costume. So to see that on screen would have been like, that's fucking kick ass. And then, see Allfather too. And how are we going to do the good side of it? Because we've seen a little bit of Apocalypse, at least in the Snyder Cut. And all it really takes for me is just like the smelting kind of effect, or just have volcanoes going off. But to see their Allfather and to see that side of it, that would have been really cool. And again, just to learn more, because I'm quite ignorant on the whole thing.
And that's a world that you can just tell on its own. That could be its own set of films, based on all of those colorful characters that Kirby created, that if he had not moved from Marvel to DC, these could have been Marvel characters at one point. If he and Stan hadn't, if Stan had paid him, these could have all been Marvel characters, and that maybe we would have seen them on the big screen by now. My thing is, I probably would not have seen this New Gods film. Tom King, I do like a lot of his comic books, not all of them. His Mr. Miracle was a great book, but I don't feel that it would have been a great adaptation for the big screen. And the way that Ava was behaving towards Snyder fans, that put me not on good terms, I guess, with this whole project. So I wasn't going to see it. I'm not celebrating that it's canceled, because I don't think most of us in the movement are like, no, you should cancel the Pattinson film so that you make these. That's not how these things really work. Instead, it's more of, if we don't go see it, then they won't make more of it. But the things that we do support, they will continue to make more of. So that's kind of where my mindset was on this one. That's how it is right now on the Pattinson film and these Warner Brothers projects that are a little bit tainted because of this Hamada stuff, and especially with this week's article on Ray Fisher. There's a lot of cleaning that needs to be done at Warner Brothers. There's some heads that I think still need to roll like they did after Justice League performed, and just to really get that toxicity out of there, and these executives that feel like they can spin these stories and make this narrative about a movement that is not necessarily, that is not true. They're more concerned with putting out this narrative of this is a toxic fan base over focusing on making right with Ray Fisher and these other cast members. So I know that's kind of word vomit on my end, but I have a lot of strong feelings on what Warner Brothers is doing with the DC universe right now that I think AT&T and HBO Max can do some really good work with and do right with the fans. But I think that's why I was a little bit not as excited about these films, and I'm not crying over the New Gods being canceled, unfortunately. And it sucks to have to say that, but as Ray says, accountability is greater than entertainment, and that's kind of where I think a lot of us in the Snyder Cut movement are feeling right now.
Yeah, and I want to shout out somebody whose name I don't know, which sounds kind of fucking stupid, but whoever wrote that article that just released, I've heard multiple times that there's a lot of people with a lot of money and a lot of, that kind of Hollywood thing of we've seen, like, do you ever want to work in this town again? Don't release that article. And she was like, fuck you, I'm going to do it anyway.
Good.
Release the article. And like, that's balls, dude. That's something good for them. I'm happy it's out. Like you said, accountability is everything. But when I read that she was being pressured and then I read the whole thing, I was like, this is what reporting should be.
Mm-hmm.
The watchdogs is what when I went to journalism school, like, we are the ones who are to report. It doesn't make us the most favorable people sometimes, but that's what you do. And hats off, man. That took some fucking guts, and I'm happy it's out. Like you said, I really do hope that the situation gets better, because now there's even reports of that guy apparently going, like, almost what I just said, apparently kind of strong arming Gal Gadot, Whedon, and like, I'm going to ruin your shit. I write the movie and you're acting in this movie and I'll make you look stupid. And if that's true, dude, really just go ahead into a hole and go fuck yourself. Please just go away. I hate hearing shit like that so much.
It's pretty awful. And the fact that Jeff Johns and Hamada were enabling this behavior makes them just as guilty, unfortunately. The Gal Gadot story had been rumored for about 2 years now, where it had been given to someone from an insider, an anonymous source, someone that was working on the film or had worked on the film. But it wasn't until this week where it was fully like out there on that. I think it was the Hollywood Reporter article of, yeah, this is what happened. And there's photos of Gal and Patty going into, I think it was the Warner Brothers offices to discuss this matter. And you can just see it on their face. They were not having it. And Gal was one of those that took care of it and brought it right up to the higher ups. And unfortunately, Ray did not get that same treatment. And more will happen this year, and we will absolutely touch on it as we continue to see how this all unfolds and how some of these positions will probably be changing, and rightfully so. But let's talk about some Snyder Cut merch, because at first we had gotten the exclusive Funko Pops that went up on the WB shop, immediately sold out. But Funko has announced that they are not only doing more exclusives, but open order Zack Snyder's Justice League Funko Pop set to release later this year. Open order meaning that all retailers that carry Funko accounts can actually order these. So these are going to be the Sod, Diana Prince, Superman, Darkseid, and Darkseid on his throne as a deluxe edition. That one is also an open order figurine. And then the exclusives are going to be metallic versions of Superman, Diana Prince, the Sod, and Darkseid, all as WB Shop exclusives. Currently sold out, but I heard that some of them went back up. Diana Prince, I believe they got more of. Hot Topic will have a variation to Superman, and Walmart, which Julian, who is one of the co-hosts here, his company will have a colored metallic version of Darkseid. We're getting these a little bit later, I think, than we expected. I don't know if Funko thought that maybe this wasn't going to be as big a success as they wanted, or probably Warner Brothers, AT&T didn't bother to license out figurines like this. But now we're getting that merch. We're getting more of these. How do you feel about them doing Funko versions of the Snyder Cut now?
I don't know if you know this about me, but I have like 300 of those little fucks around this house.
That's right.
So I was very happy to hear this news. My wife, on the other hand, was like, God damn it. Because DC is where I am focusing a lot right now. I just finished, it's funny, I brought up the DC Dark Universe because I got the Spectre, Deadman, Constantine, Swamp Thing, and Zatanna sitting on my desk now. But I'm also a collector. Like, I don't know if I'll get a second Superman. So I'm happy about it either way because I love Funkos. I like seeing them. I'll probably buy a good amount of them. Like you said, it's nice to see that it's finally happening. it was weird the fact that, yeah, I guess they were just sitting on these figures like, I don't know. I don't know. Should we make them? And Warner Brothers was like, I don't know. I guess. Go ahead. Because all of a sudden it's just like, yeah, here's Snyder Cut Funkos. And you're like, great. A few weeks late, but whatever.
I'm glad we're getting him. Darkseid Throne Deluxe Edition. I never thought they would have done it. I thought we were going to get a little Darkseid, maybe a Nuxus, but a Throne Deluxe Darkseid. It's amazing. I obviously ordered these for the store, for myself. I had to get one of each. A bunch of them sold out, unfortunately, so I wasn't able to get those. But I had to put my dollar right where I promised I would. I said if they would make it, I would buy all, as much merch as I could, and I'm doing it. I have to get them all, so I did. I have them all pre-ordered. And I'm glad that certain retailers are getting exclusives. I'll have to hit up Hot Topic once they actually drop and get that Superman. I did notice, I don't know if you saw it too, but it's the same molding as when they released the Justice League versions in 2017, but they repainted them in the black and silver.
I did not, but that's worth chasing. The Throne is worth also going after. Yeah, I think that's kind of funny. Yeah, they were just like, well, now he wears his different suit, because it's almost the opposite of what they did for the movie. They're like, he's in black and gray. It's like, just paint it blue and red. Nobody will notice.
And that's something that I think Macia was saying, that this is also great for merchandising because they can just take previous moldings, kind of like they did with the Hot Toys on Sideshow, and change up the suit to black and white. And they're like, oh, here it is, the Snyder Cut version. They did it with the gallery figures of Superman. I recognized the Man of Steel one that came out many years ago. And a few months back, they solicited the Snyder Cut version, and it's black and silver, but it's the exact same molding. So they're saving money on the back end by just throwing paint up and then going, those Snyder Cut idiots will buy it. And I'm like, yeah, no, I know it's the same molding. Give me that. I'll buy it. Slap Snyder Cut on it.
I'll take fucking 2. Thank you very much.
Did you see the trending event that was Deathstroke HBO Max earlier last week?
A little bit. I caught a little bit of it once it was brought to my attention. It's great. Let's do that. Oh my God, let's do that. When I saw him in the nightmare scene, or is that still what we call the what's it called? The epilogue scene. And he's got the mohawk and he's just rocking out. I've always been a big fan of that guy. I think that he's terrific. When they cast him as this, I was like, this is going to be great. When the Batfleck versus him movie was going on, I was like, this is going to be great. And then it all kind of went to shit. And now it's kind of rehashtagging and coming back like, fuck. Yes, I'm 100% for this in every single way.
Joe Manganiello himself hashtagged and tweeted and put up an image of the additional photography of his scene in the Nightmare World. We had previously gotten him a little bit in the Justice League version with 80-yard dialogue from Lex Luthor saying a league of our own. And then we saw the original scene in which it would have led into the Batfleck solo film by him saying, here's something that can help you. And his name is Bruce Wayne. Do you think that there are, maybe he signed off on a contract of maybe there's more scenes that he now is doing for Justice League 2? Or do you think he's simply campaigning to get a Deathstroke TV show on HBO Max?
If he's smart, both. I mean, I would put everything into campaigning for my own show on HBO Max. Why not? Like I said earlier, they have the money. They just don't have a direction. I feel like they're people who don't know what they want until they see it. So they didn't know that they wanted to release this until they saw the flood of hashtag release. And they're like, oh shit, this is what they want. So hopefully he's smart enough to be doing the same thing. And if he has any behind the scenes photos that he's allowed to leak out, like, don't let this wave die, dude. Just keep kind of putting it out. Like, hey, you want to see me in the orange and black mask? And it's like, yes, we do. Thank you. If I were him, I would just try to mold as much of it into reality to show them, like, look, they want it, because I do feel like they'll snap, like, yeah, okay, go do it.
He elaborated on his take on Deathstroke, which I thought was really neat. I got a lot of insight on how collaborative he really was on the Snyderverse version of Slade, because he said, I didn't want him to be super powered, and whatever they ended up building with the character, he had a lot of input on it, just like Ray Fisher did with Cyborg, which is amazing. I think it's great. But one of the things that he did say is that this was a Deathstroke that isn't a super soldier like in the comic books. He is instead an inverse to Bruce Wayne. He is someone that is highly trained. The League of Assassins were involved in his origin. He mentions Ra's al Ghul. And it is someone that goes further than Batman rather than an independent contract assassin that is juiced up and ages slower, not quite as comic book origins, but instead it's really tied into Bruce Wayne. How do you feel about that change?
Stewing on it. I like that. I don't know. I kind of, I'm iffy on it. I definitely like the character of like, I want to be the opposite side of the coin of Bruce Wayne, but the fact that he can kind of get old, that sucks a little. I like the kind of super soldierness to him. I guess still he'd be at the peak of fitness, no?
Yeah, he would be.
So yeah, have you ever seen him? Not in real life, but like he's super big as it is. So even him in his later years, hurt could still just squash me like a fucking bug. So I guess I don't need the super soldier. Yeah, I guess that would be fun. Why not? Put another Batman in there, like I was saying earlier, and let's just see this go. And do you think that he'd be more of a, I cross that line and I kill every single time, and that's why Batman would hate him?
I'm assuming so. I would actually, maybe there's a backstory of both of them training under the League of Assassins, or at some point meeting, crossing paths while Slade is working with the League of Assassins, and maybe that's where they first encountered each other. There has to be some kind of tie-in to both of their origins in the Snyderverse, at least. I think that would be one way to do it.
And definitely have maybe the brand come back, because I always thought that was interesting, and I know that pissed off a lot of people about Batman in the Snyderverse, that like he'd brand people, especially people who hurt children. And they're like, how could he do that? And it's like, hey, if you know anything about prison now, like those people are going to get fucking shanked anyway.
Yeah.
It is no secret that in today's correctional facilities, that if you are known to be somebody who hurts kids or does worse to kids or women, like you're numero uno for getting the shit kicked out of you anyway. So I don't think the Bat brand was like that big of a thing to do, other than maybe just get the alert going sooner. I don't know. But maybe that would kind of play into it of like, hey, we're not that different. Like, look what you did. You basically did sentence him to death. We are kind of the same. And he's like, I don't ever pull the trigger, though. And that would be fucking interesting. The more that I'm thinking about it, the more I'm writing in my own head of like, wow, that would be so great.
I like the character, but I don't really know much about his origins. So for me, when I heard about the silver hair and the super soldier thing, I'm like, okay, so he might be like a Wolverine-ish character where he's in his 50s or 60s, but his body doesn't quite age at that same rate. But that's how you know he's an older character, because in comics, you put the white hair on him, okay, he's an older character. And I guess in this version, if he's not super powered, it's just a character with silver hair, I guess. Or maybe it's a character that is about Bruce's age. This version of Bruce has silver in his hair. So maybe I'm just thinking way too much about it. Some Deathstroke fan out there can answer that question. It's just hair color. But that's the one thing that I'm like, okay, but if he's not super powered then, and his hair is that color, then he's really old. I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out.
And like, that's a character that they play with all the time. I'm almost positive he's got 4 or 5 live action appearances. He was on Arrow. They did one of there. He's on Titans. They did one there. I'm pretty sure that they did some version. Shit, was it? I can't think. I wanted to say Smallville, but I know that's not true. But they put him in a bunch of different shit, and nobody's supposed to be confused. So I don't understand why we can't just do this all over the plane. We understand. Just keep kind of going back to what we were saying. Just put them all out, guys. If you have a good idea, just do it. You made Birds of Prey once, and not even like the fabulous blah, blah, blah. I mean, like the old school Birds of Prey show. Like, you made that piece of shit once. Like, come the fuck on. Just take a chance.
I had forgotten about that. Oh, man. And I think that's on HBO Max, or it was at one point. Holy shit. It was definitely on DC Universe. Let's make it happen. I'm excited for the future. I think when the AT&T quarterly earnings come out, we will probably see some promises and announcements on the future of this. I think the latter half of 2021 will make us all very, very happy. The rest of today's episode is going to be a review discussion on Warner Brothers' latest blockbuster, Godzilla vs. Kong. It is going to be a spoiler-filled review, so if you have not seen the movie yet, come back later on next week, or if you don't care about the spoilers because it really is just a movie about giant monsters fighting, then join us on today's review for Godzilla vs. Kong on HBO Max and in theaters.
The world needs him.
So this one stars Alexander Skarsgård from True Blood, Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things, Rebecca Hall from The Town, and Brian Tyree Henry from Into the Spider-Verse. It is directed by Adam Wingard from 2016's Blair Witch, written by Terry Rossio from Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Men Tell No Tales, Michael Dougherty from X-Men Apocalypse, Zach Shields from Krampus, Eric Pearson from Thor Ragnarok, and Max Borenstein from Kong Skull Island. We're going to go into a little bit of the plot, maybe some of the special effects, not super structured, but instead kind of give our overall opinions on this one, which is the last one in the MonsterVerse so far. And it's the fourth film, I believe, in the MonsterVerse too. Nick, what were your initial impressions of Godzilla vs. Kong?
Right off the bat, I do hope that anybody who is listening and they're like, oh, they're going to do spoilers, maybe I shouldn't listen, stayed. Because if you saw the fucking preview, that is the movie. Like you said, it is just a kind of beat 'em up thing. The plot to me was so paper thin. The toilers, the spoilers through toys, especially Funko Pops, even though I just praised them. In my opinion, and again, we did say spoilers, the Mecha Godzilla kind of coming at the end was, I saw that coming. I saw that before we hit play. It was super duper paper thin that wise. So if you're looking for a movie that's going to twist and turn on you, this one was not the one. I found it just so, all right, I'm at point A, point B is over there. Let's go, guys. And that's exactly what it delivered. Now, with that, I did have fun on my ride. I thought that it looked really, really good. But yeah, if you saw the fucking trailer, you know what's going to happen this whole time.
I'm glad you mentioned the toys because when they did the debut of them in a Chinese, I think it was a toy convention that takes place in China, and we saw the Mecha Godzilla, we saw Kong, we saw the axe that he has with the Godzilla spike on it, but there was also a toy of Godzilla with a mech like cast on him, almost as if they built something on him to help him fight Mechagodzilla or some other monster. And these toys were originally set up and built and done before the King of the Monsters film had released. So there were originally 2 more films planned, and I don't know if they squished the plots into this one movie, and I think they did, because there were also test screenings of a longer version of this movie. And from those test screenings, there was a different outcome on the ending, with Kong actually winning and Godzilla needing that mech cast thing, so the humans helping Godzilla out to help fight Kong and Mechagodzilla at the very end of the film. So there were a lot of changes that obviously happened. The director has since said that there's 5 hours of footage that like a 5-hour version, and it was mandated to be cut down due to movie screenings, and it's what Warner Brothers does, and I have a feeling they're going to do it with Mortal Kombat as well. But after King of the Monsters underperformed, that's when they did reshoots on this movie, trimmed it down, got rid of the next film that they were going to do, so they were not going to end this on a cliffhanger, and ended the MonsterVerse. And I felt the same about the plot. It was paper thin. It felt, in many places, it did not make sense to me, where it's like, okay, it makes sense that there's more to this plot, where there could have been an extra film out of this. And unfortunately, that was part of my disappointment with it. It was my least favorite of these 4 films so far in the MonsterVerse. I felt that maybe there was a budget cut between this and King of the Monsters, because there were some scenes in which Godzilla looked, I don't know, he looked like a TV version of Godzilla. There's, especially at the very beginning when he's going into the first base of, okay, the alpha signal's going out and he's hitting the Apex facility. And he's waving his arms around and the tail's going all over the place. And I'm like, what the fuck what Godzilla is this now? Because in the first 2014 version, they treated him so earnestly. This is a mythical, larger than life creature that we have no influence over. And in the second one, they're like, okay, well, he's the king of the monsters. He is this godlike creature that is fighting the devil, not Mecha Ghidorah yet, but Ghidorah. And then in this one, it's like, okay, look, it's a giant lizard, it's a giant monkey, they're gonna fight, there's gonna be humor. And it seemed like with each film, they just did not really, they treated them as cartoons almost, it felt like. And And I don't know, did you feel like there was more to this plot and you were kind of missing some things here and there?
Oh no, the movie opens up. Kong is still on Skull Island, but like in a Truman Show, if you will, environment. And he wakes up and first thing he does is scratch his ass. And I was like, okay, this is where we are. This is what we're going to be doing. We got our ha ha right in the opening. This is going to be thin. Now, to my ignorance, I have seen the other monster movies, I think, once a piece. And I didn't really get hooked into any of them. Not that this hooked me, but it was faster from what I can remember. You know, like you were saying, I do believe somebody came in there and kind of marveled it up, for lack of a better word, of like, let's get the joke in there right away. Let's make sure it's going. Nobody has time to really think about why this doesn't make sense, why these characters are doing it. Because I love Millie Bobby Brown. I thought that she and the Deadpool kid running around, it was fun, but it made no fucking sense. It really just like, why are you doing this? Where is security during all this? Why are you on a train to Japan or China right now? Like, what the fuck is going on that nobody's caught you during all of this? But they moved along so fast that I didn't really think about that until the very end. Now it's paper thin, but they push you through and they make sure that you got a lot to look at in between to kind of trick you almost until it was the very end. And then I sat there and I was like, all right, I didn't enjoy that. I didn't hate it. I didn't have fun. I didn't not have like what the fuck. For me, it was just like, well, that was weird. I entered a time vortex and it just happened. It just happened.
It kind of feels like a ride at Universal Studios that you're like, oh shit, it's over. Like, what the fuck did I just go through? Why is my back hurt? Yeah, that's a great point. And I don't know if it's a victim of the fact that I've seen King of the Monsters several times in the 2014 Godzilla, and that I'm kind of connecting all of those with this one, in which King of the Monsters, they released it not knowing, obviously, that they were going to cancel one of the next two films, but they ended it with monsters converging on Skull Island, is what the newspaper clippings were saying, and that there was another Mothra egg, so Mothra is reborn. And I'm going, okay, and we've got the post-credit scene with Ghidorah's head, and I'm like, all right, so we're probably leading into a Mecha Ghidorah territory, and then this opens. As you mentioned, on Skull Island, there's no monsters converging. There's no exploration about on Hollow Earth on Skull Island, which is what they were saying. They also hinted at in there. And instead, they've kidnapped Kong. They're trying to make him go into the Hollow Earth, I guess, or move him, which is easily done, apparently. And all of the setup that they had for King of the Monsters, they completely ignored. And the main scientist that was watching over Kong, I don't remember the character's name, but she was played by Rebecca Hall, very easily gives in to this other Hollow Earth scientist of, look, we need to use him so that he can go down to Hollow Earth. And she's like, no, I'm not just going to, all right, well, that's fine. All right, cool. And they set her up so much to care about Kong, but she lets them do whatever they want with the creature, put him in chains, throw him on a boat, fight Godzilla, still take him to the Hollow Earth. So even the characters themselves, I was getting hung up on because they were being inconsistent with how they had very lightly built them up in minutes, and they were already contradicting their own little histories that they had set up. And then the fights between Godzilla and Kong, it's like, okay, these are kind of cool. These are all right. These are fine. But the fact that they happened so early on and so quickly in the film, it made it not feel as epic to me. And I feel like the confrontation between these two icons should have been larger. It should have been more of like a massive buildup of the film. And we got build up in other movies, but it did not feel like, okay, now in this one, this is when they're really gonna, oh, well, here they're on a boat and they're gonna start fighting and he kicks him off and he has to play dead. And I'm like, what the fuck did we do here? What are we doing?
To touch on that, I have a cousin in the Merchant Marines, and I said to him, Matt, is there any way that a creature that large would fit on a boat and not sink it? And he said, Nick, no, there's not. Not only is there not a creature or not a boat that big to do that kind of shit, but if said animal, in this case, the giant gorilla, were to jump from one to the other, the buoyancy of the boat would just sink altogether. You know, it'd be almost like Tom Segura when he went up to do that layup and he broke his fucking thing, like, and he just crashed down. I don't know if you're Your Mom's House podcast fan,
Mm-mm.
but that's how it would look like. You know, there would be no airtime. His force would just sink the boat and then he'd be halfway in water. So not only as a non-merchant marine, when I was watching that, going, physics is taking a back seat here, but then to have it really confirmed by somebody who's like, yeah, that's really fucking the dumbest thing I've ever seen, also really cheapened that first interaction. And then, like you said, the play dead. He'll think that we're dead and then he'll fuck off. And the guy goes, if you're wrong about this, well, if he's wrong about this, you're all fucking dead, dumb shit. Like, what a hollow goddamn threat that was. Like, what? Yeah, that whole first meeting was fucked. But they did get me for a second. Like, I knew it was called shit. This is gonna make me sound so stupid. When they were like, it's called Kong vs Godzilla or whatever, and they were like, we got to release some. And there was that moment where he's swimming towards the release things, and I was like, fuck, is he not gonna make it? And then of course he does, because there's an entire movie to go on. But that one scene, and I think it's because I'm claustrophobic and afraid of drowning. So when they were all upside down in the water there, I was like, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me personally. Yeah, that entire scene was stupid. And how they got him there, like you're talking about, this guy, and I can't remember any character's name, and that's how, in my opinion, you really know shit is bad. So I'm just going to call them by their name. So Alexander Skarsgård does go to Rebecca Hall, and he's like, we got to get this monkey down the hole. Some super evil guy who wears his coat on his shoulders just told me that shit's going to go my way, and I believed him. Like, that was one of the most bad guy introductions I've ever seen. And Alexander Skarsgård just like, hey, I trust you. All right, I'll listen. What'd you think about that entire thing of like getting hit? Like, it wasn't, again, so paper thin. That guy was so clearly evil and going to fuck shit up. And he was like, I have a way to fix things. He's like, okay, let me go grab the monkey. And then they did.
I love things that make me money. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
And what happened to the villain from King of the Monsters? That guy was way better. Man, I guess he's from Game of Thrones, is what one of my coworkers keeps saying, in King of the Monsters, and they didn't bring him back for this one, unfortunately. But yeah, that sucked, man. Like, and they don't tell us how they made a Mechagodzilla. They just said, this is our deterrent. We're super rich. We have advanced tech. We're going to make something that looks like a metallic version of Godzilla. Why? How? How'd you do this? No, it's already done, so don't even ask that question. We just need something to power it up. That sucked. I didn't like that. And I think that's it's a result of them needing to make this one film. It felt like there was something else here. And I know in the original old movies, they're aliens that come down and they have that advanced tech, and they decided to go with evil corporation that has a shit ton of money but needs that thing that's down in the hollow earth, and they're gonna exploit that, and maybe there'll be a connection to that in the Three Monsters. No, there isn't. Okay, well, it's just, I wasn't a fan.
He runs a company called Apex, and his goal is to be the apex predator. You see what I did there? I'm very slick as a screenwriter, aren't I? And when you look at it too, and not to fucking bash these people, but to kind of bash these people, when you went through the written by, I'm going to go through not the writers, but the movies in which they worked on. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, X-Men Apocalypse, Krampus, Thor Ragnarok, and Kong Skull Island. So I can't speak to Kong Skull Island, because like I said, I only saw it once. But those other movies aren't really that great, in my opinion. And they are as see-through as this was. And like I said, there's a butt scratching joke right at the beginning. And I'm like, all right, this is the ride we're on, guys. I should have seen that if I had read this cast or read this writer's list first. Probably would have seen this coming.
And weeks ago, the director had said the reason he was brought on for this particular movie is to change the tone and make it lighter compared to King of the Monsters. So Warner Brothers saw the box office performance of King of the Monsters and said, the reason that didn't do as well as the 2014 Godzilla is because it was too dark. And me as a viewer, I'm going, the 2014 Godzilla was darker though. What are you talking about? And I don't know, man. I don't know how they make these fucking decisions. I really don't. And it baffles me every fucking time. And I should expect it, but it still surprises me.
I think it was a South Park episode that made a joke about how Family Guy makes their jokes, their cutaways. If I'm not mistaken, it's either killer whales or maybe beluga whales, some sort of whale. And they have like 3 ball pits to choose from, and they just kind of pick one up, and almost like the lottery, these 3 ball then we'll make one sentence. The balls have different words on it. So it'll be like podcaster catches train, and then like that's their cutaway or whatever. That was stupid. But I think that that's sometimes what they're doing here too, where they're just like, what are we doing? And they're like, just picking into the ball of creatures. Godzilla, okay. Picking into the ball of stuff to do. Floats, okay. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like they had a clear vision of what they wanted to do with this, because everything works out so perfectly. Whereas if you put even one tiny bit of iota of thinking or thought into this, the plot shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the boat didn't work, what are we doing? Oh, we have these helicopters. Why didn't you do that from the first place then? Why aren't these kids who are running around the secret high-tech place getting stopped by any amount of security?
Or shot immediately, like on site?
It makes no sense how they just keep getting through things. And to top this off, they are being run around by an adult of sorts who is a conspiracy nut / podcast host of his own. And he works at a place in which he's trying to destroy from the inside, broadcasting over the internet stuff, and they don't find him.
Nope.
Like, that's weird, dude. If you were to start talking shit on your boss on your podcast, how soon until he finds out?
Exactly. Well, when it opened, I thought that's what was going to happen, where he's like, and now I'm going to go in. I'm like, okay, so this is the opening scene where they shut him down, they kill him, and then we're going to see like Mechagodzilla or something, like some kind of hint. And nope, he's able to get away with everything because of chuckles and jokes and his nerdy personality.
Yeah, that scene where he's trying to get the other guy to fuck off out of his own office was so cringeworthy to watch and stuff. Like, I understood what he was doing, and he was purposely trying to be annoying to get his end goal of getting this guy like, I gotta go to the bathroom. But fuck, it was just so cringy to watch. And then, like you said, he gets out and he survives the whole thing, walks around the whole thing, meets the bad guy face to face. It's the entire thing is like, you're just a dude. You're just a guy. And why are you here? This makes zero sense, but I hope you're having a fun time.
The other part too with the Skull Island, and this is one thing, I kept rewriting the fucking movie, and I hate doing that because I'm not a screenwriter and I'm not as talented as these guys, but I'm like, we didn't need to take Kong out of Skull Island to have him meet Godzilla. We didn't have to take him out of Skull Island to have him in the Hollow Earth. In Kong Skull Island, they introduce this idea that these skull creatures are coming from a hollow earth, from underground, that these are monsters that have been dormant for many years and have now reclaimed the earth. So you never had to take Kong out of the island. You could have gone straight to Hollow Earth with just straight from Skull Island, have him get his axe or whatever they wanted to do, and avoided so much of the confusion and problems that come out of that plot. And I hated doing that because I'm like, if they had done this here, then we could have gotten a better scene here, and then we would have avoided, we wouldn't even need these characters over here. And I don't know, man. And the Hollow Earth, that being the original Kong's world, or where all the monsters came from, was also an unnecessary thing because they already established in Skull Island that this is where the Kongs lived. There were other ancestors. There were previous tribes that forever worshipped Kong and Godzilla and Mothra, and that's all in the cave drawings of Skull Island. And to introduce now this other Earth where there's tech down there, I guess, and the Kongs, who the fuck built the temple down there? Was it other humans?
Oh my God, dude, I was waiting for you. Like, I don't want to sound rude, but I was waiting to stop because I didn't want to forget to ask you that. Like, what the fuck was going on there? Who did build that?
There's giant pillars and there's tech, and he puts his axe on a little indent, and that is a computer on its own, I guess, that powers up and annoys Godzilla because they're tapping into a power. None of that was explained.
None of it. So the other thing, too, we have to talk about is to get to this Hollow Earth, they had to build these ships. It's believed that Alexander Skarsgård's brother went there, but he got crushed because when you go from Hollow Earth or from regular Earth to Hollow Earth, there's like a weird inversion of gravity that they just are like, fuck it, it crushes you. And we're just supposed to believe it. They build these giant ships and they get down there and everything's fine. So when Kong places his new axe on the charging station, if you will, and it charges, Godzilla's like, what the fuck's going on? I got to figure this out, and shoots a beam into Hollow Earth. And Godzilla climbs up through it. Or Kong climbs up through it, right? Did he have to go back through that inversion thing? Was there still gravity there? How was Godzilla's fire able to break through it? Like, they really put so much science into the beginning of explaining why it's going to be so hard to get from that plane to that plane, and then they never touch on it again. Because at the very end of the movie, we get them back there, and it's like, wait, did you build more ships? How are you just standing there outside the ship with no mask? Like, what the fuck is going on? Just stick to a lane, people.
And I'm assuming Kong just went straight down into the Hollow Earth again. And where were they? Tokyo? And people in Tokyo, I'm sure they'll just, we'll patch that up. Or are they now curious? Like, holy shit, there's a fucking Hollow Earth down here. Are those creatures, those flying serpents, gonna go up into Tokyo and now start fucking things up? So they just left it all completely like, fuck it, who cares? You got your fucking monsters. You saw Mechagodzilla. And I'm like, yeah, I did, but it was all done terribly.
Two things of that. One, if there are people alive in that city, I don't think they're going to care about the whole anymore because they've built an entire fucking city. You want to talk about some damage control? Fucking A. And this kind of, I know that this won't be the best comparison, but I'm still fighting. Like, why is this any different than Man of Steel? Like, why is it that nobody's calling for all the destruction at the end of this? You know, when you think about it, both Zod and Superman are stronger, in my opinion, than Kong and Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, yeah, if anything, this kind of shows more sense of what happens when two powerful beings go at one another. That's, I guess, neither here or there. The second thing I want to talk of that you just broke up is, like, when we first went into the Hollow Earth, two literally things attack Kong, and one of them he fucks up. The other one was going to kill him, period. Yeah. If humans were not there with him, he would have died. The movie would have been over right there.
I hope Kong survives. Like, now that he's back down there, I'm a Kong fan. I was rooting for him, but he almost died fighting Godzilla the first time. He almost died fighting the second serpent, lost to Godzilla for reasons, I don't know. And then submits himself to Godzilla by dropping the axe. So once again, this line of Kong bows to no one, yet he relents his attack. He doesn't fight. When you're looking at two alpha characters, two alpha creatures, because that's how they built these two up as, neither one's going to back down. And then one of them backs down and the other one's like, damn right, and goes off into the ocean. I'm like, this is like, you did Kong bad 4 times now. it's awful. Like they didn't give him his own other than he kills Mechagodzilla, I guess.
No, I think that they really tried to make him, the bone they threw him was like, you're smart. You could do sign language, Kong. You won't win a fight, but at least you could talk to people. How's that?
Right.
And I was like, well, that's a kind of fun choice. And kind of going back to what we were talking about, the thing that I'm keep hearing after this movie came out is like, all these monster movies have too many people in it. The people ruin the movie. We just need a monster movie with only monsters. And I'm trying to wrap my head around that. So if he does go back to Hollow Earth and he does find more apes, are we really just going to watch a bunch of giant apes sign languaging then? Is that what the people want with no human element? Like, how are we supposed to kind of push through the movie without that? And if we are going to a place with giant apes just sign languaging, I don't know if I want to go there.
You always hear that argument every time one of these fucking movies comes out. There's too many humans in that Godzilla movie. There's too much plot point. It's like, have you seen any Godzilla film ever? They all have 75% human plot, and then the last 25% is the monsters fucking fighting. They're Godzilla movies. That blows me away every fucking time. Now, I would prefer that the human stories were better, like they were in the last couple of movies. They were absolute garbage in this one, but no, it's still a Godzilla film. 75% humans. It's fine. We're never going to get a 100% monster film, and I hope we don't, because I think it'd be even worse.
It would make no sense. It would make no sense of how we're going to get through it. So I agree. I really can't say enough that I really don't need that in my future. Now, if he were to come back, so Mechagodzilla, I'm sorry, before I get too ahead of myself, that fight was not bad. Kind of going back to Kong as well, when he had to repop his hip or his shoulder in, that was pretty badass. But then they go on to destroy him pretty quickly.
Godzilla was getting fucking wrecked. That's one thing that I wish they had, again, made a little bit clearer in the plot of, okay, Mechagodzilla, this is the part that I rewrote of why didn't they make it clear to us, the Apex Corporation, they want the two strongest creatures on Earth to fight so that one kills the other and then they'll finish off the weakened one. That should have been the plot right there. And instead it was, well, we need to get him into Hollow Earth, but Godzilla's going to come after him and we got to avoid Godzilla. Why are we doing that? Why are we doing this right now? It's amazing to me. But yeah, he absolutely wrecked Godzilla. And I'm assuming it's because he was tired from fighting Kong, but he looked perfectly fine. Some people have told me that it's because Mechagodzilla was specifically designed to fight Godzilla, and I don't necessarily buy that, but that's another thing that I think would have been really neat to see.
Especially too. So are we led to believe? And again, I'm going to really rely on you because I didn't see the other one. So Ghidorah is the three-headed monster.
Mm-hmm.
There should be three skulls, and what we're led to believe is one of those skulls is actually in the Mecha Godzilla, and the other one is in the Apex facility, also acting as a captain's chair, if you will,
Yeah.
to connect to the Mecha Godzilla. And that's how, in their perfect world, in Apex's perfect world, they were going to have a human-controlled Mecha Godzilla.
So
right?
the way that the last one ended is during the first fight between Godzilla and Ghidorah, second fight, he ends up cutting off one of the three heads and it falls into the ocean, and it regenerates the head again later on, and that's how we see, oh shit, Mechagodzilla can fucking regenerate. You can't really kill this thing. At the very end of the film, when Godzilla goes into its meltdown mode with the help of Mothra at Mothra's sacrifice, he absolutely melts and burns every cell. It's like killing Wolverine. Every cell of Ghidorah. So that's how it's not able to regenerate. So it's completely dead. All three heads are gone, but there's that one head from the middle of the movie that's underwater in the ocean that this organization that is not Apex, and for some reason they're just gone, I guess, or are no longer around, but they're the ones that in the post-credit scene, they're like, okay, we're going to buy that head that fell into the ocean and do who knows what with it. But that's the one skull that you see in this film, and we're led to believe that, I guess there's some psychic links that they could use between the computers and Ghidorah, which wasn't established in the last movie, but it is a part of traditional Ghidorah from the old Japanese films. So that's kind of where they were trying to make that connection.
I like to hear that does have some root, because to be honest, that was one of the things that I bumped back against least, where he was like, yeah, Ghidorah is really big, its necks are long, it just makes more sense rather than making noises that it just thinks to each other. I was like, holy shit, I'll fucking buy that right now. So like that pilot chair, yeah, it's a funny joke, but that was one of the things that I really didn't bother with that whole time. I was like, all right, right on.
The only thing with him though is I kind of wanted he's like, all right, they set him up also as like a sub villain, the guy that's controlling him, and he just gets electrocuted and dies, and I kind of expected maybe a little bit more out of that character, and both villains are both just victims of Mechagodzilla. They get written off really easily.
Really easily and really quickly, back to back. The thing fries the one guy in the pilot chair, and now the Mechagodzilla can do whatever the fuck he wants. He doesn't want a ruler or a master, and just boop, right off. And yeah, both of those characters, super evil, super thin, and super dead really, really quickly.
So why the fuck does Mechagodzilla all of a sudden have its own mind? Where was that? Did I miss that part of the plot where its programming automated kicked in something rather?
I took away from it that, and now this is where, again, it gets even more ridiculous, that it was almost, oh, Jesus, the ghost of Ghidorah, somewhere in that skull was a memory of, Faye, fuck that lizard. So when it was plugged back in and maybe took some mind power from the pilot, maybe took his memories, I don't know. It is not explained why this thing wakes up and he's like, hey, I'm going to go fuck Godzilla up.
As soon as the Mechagodzilla churned on him, I was still, I don't know why, holding hope that maybe we'd get a Mechaghidorah out of this. And if he was somehow able to regenerate from the skull, if that was actually in Mechagodzilla, like if they had done it that way, and then when the programming got fried, which is what would have held those cells from, because they had here's what they would have done, Nick. They would have reprogrammed the Mechaghidorah head, or the Ghidorah head, so that they're able to use those cells to power up Mechagodzilla, but they're able to contain the self recreation thing, that's the regeneration, using the same technology. But as soon as the thing gets fried by the alcohol that gets spilled all over, or whatever it was, that was later on, but as soon as that gets fried, it churns off the regeneration. Fucking Ghidorah grows out of Mechagodzilla in the middle of the fight against Godzilla vs Kong, and we get fucking Mechaghidorah. I was holding hope for that, man. That would have been amazing.
And it really wouldn't have been that far of a stretch with that guy's skull or with Ghidorah's skull in there. That was, yeah, shit, we should have written that. So you're saying, yeah, all of a sudden it's just fighting and it stops and you're like, oh, yeah, we beat it. And then it splits in half and something
Oh,
just pops up
man.
out of the middle of it. And it's
Yeah.
just like, round 3,
Oh,
motherfuckers.
man, that would have been. And that's why I thought that was going to happen. I'm like, okay, so it's on its own. I had the exact same thought of, okay, Ghidorah's taking over and we're about to see this. Not the case. It's just the computer went crazy, and they were thankfully able to interrupt it by doing a '90s move. Of I feel like we always saw that in the '90s with computers, like, oh no, water got all over it, shit, and they were able to get the upper hand on them that way. Fucking dumb.
Yeah, I could throw my phone into a pool of water and it'll be okay for a little bit. It is weird to think that that's what did everything. And Russell, I know that's not his name. That was his name in Deadpool 2, but that's what I'm going to call the kid. You know, Russell at one point is like, I'm not a hacker. And it's like, then what are you doing? What are we doing? What is happening other than, all right, well, this runtime got a little short. Let's just have the kid tap on the computer for a while.
Is that
It
his
was,
actual accent, by the way?
I think so. That's how he talked in Deadpool 2.
Okay,
So either
just making
somebody
sure.
saw that and they were like, hey, do that same thing again, or that's really how he talks.
All right, because I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Sorry, keep going.
No, I thought I liked him and I liked Millie Bobby Brown. It was just when I started liking them, I kept thinking to myself, why are you here? There is just no reason nor actual evidence that you would be able to be where you are as you're doing it. So every time I found myself like liking their little rapport or just kind of watching them, I was like, this makes no fucking sense. What are you doing here? Especially in the giant tunnel to China.
That was really convenient, wasn't it?
Yeah, what were they
Speed
doing
train.
with the other things? What were those things called that the Mecha Godzilla destroyed first off? I want to say face
Skull
huggers, but I know
crawlers.
that skull crawlers. Close enough.
They were inspired by Marowak from Pokemon, the guy that designed those in Kong Skull Island. So they're basically Pokemon.
That's awesome. Marowak Cubones.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, nice. Fucking hey. Ooh, I'm gonna have to go back just to watch that for that. That will be my reason to have a second viewing of this, to be honest.
The fight between Kong versus Godzilla. I hate that we're just, mainly shitting on the whole thing, but let's talk about the thing that people paid to see. The main battle between the two creatures. You see Kong using his skills. He pulls a fucking Batman move. He climbs up into the top highest building, the rafters. He throws something to distract Godzilla and then tries to silent takedown him. And what'd you think of that whole fight overall?
It was okay. I know that you said you wanted to move on from shitting on it, but I do have a question for you before we do that. That's a little bit more shitting on it. We kind of had to defibrillate Kong there for a second. That was weird. And how did Alexander Skarsgård know to make it like that whole thing? I was like, really? This is fucking strange. I thought we could have just gone for, the little deaf girl kind of going up like, hey, wake up. You have to. You're my friend and we're friends and I'm going to die if you don't fuck shit up. And he's like, all right, now I found the will inside me. To get the whole defibrillator angle was like, that was fucking weird.
That would have been better, what you mentioned, because he could have still been hurt and not at 100% after his fight with Godzilla, but after the defibrillator and he snaps his shoulder back in, he's automatically healed as well, I guess, from all those scratches and burns from Godzilla, and he can now fight 100% and swing that axe around, and yeah, that was really dumb.
Very, very dumb. But it does lead to what we're talking about of what everybody paid for the main fight, and I gotta say, it did look good. I thought that the money that they put into it was there.
Mm-hmm.
I had a good time. It was what, like you said, it was what I showed up for. I was confused during the whole thing of just trying to get ahead of it. Like, this can't be all that it is. And then that's all that it was. And at the very end of the day, like you said, Kong was like, all right, I guess I'm number 2. And Godzilla was like, goddamn right, bro. See you next time. And that was just kind of it.
When Kong was like getting back up, I'm like, okay, this is round 3 now. And this is when Kong wins, because that's what the test screenings told us. And nope, he falls back down. I remember telling Kelly, I was like, he's not done yet. And then he falls down and she goes, no, he's done. And I'm like, oh, fuck this fucking fight too. Just because it didn't go my way.
I'm on the same board with you, though, because I was Team King Kong, and I believe you said it perfectly earlier. He did kind of get bitched out like 4 times in a fucking row during this.
And they had set up these two monsters as they're going to fight until one dies. And Godzilla spares him. he yells at him as if like establishing his dominance. Kong yells right back because he's like, no, I will die. I'm not going to relent to you. And Godzilla walks away. And that's another thing, that he's killed every other monster unless it bows down to him, like Rodan's bitch ass did in King of the Monsters. But Kong wasn't doing that. And again, for whatever reason, Godzilla spares him, even though they were fighting to the death. I think Godzilla would have fucking killed him if it were Kong would have killed him if the outcome had been different.
It's so funny that that's what you took from that. I took Kong's yell back at him a completely different way. Of like, Godzilla's there like, what's up, bitch? And the other guy's like, fine, stop yelling. It's like when my dogs go at it, I've got 2 pit bulls. One's bigger than the other one, and the smaller one wins about 95% of the fights. But when the big one's got enough of that shit, he will put her in her place and bark. And she doesn't just sit there and she barks back, but it's in this really scared way. And that's how I took that when he was laying there, just like, stop yelling at me. You won. You won.
I mean, is that why you think Godzilla then spared him, because he relented?
Yeah, because I can't, like you said, I can't think of any other way. This movie was sold like there can be only one.
Oh, you know what though?
Fuck him up.
No, Godzilla did kill him because he crushed his chest, and maybe that's when he knew, okay, I killed him. His heart is slowing down.
Oh, good call. Fucking A.
So never mind.
Because that is what was brought up in the middle of the ocean of like, if we just stay silent, he can hear that everything's silent and he'll know that he won.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's
Godzilla,
the same thing. Yeah, he's got to have giant lizard ears that are like, all right, it's going doom 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 doom. So yeah, that makes sense. So dude, I'm more on fucking board with your movie. You said you don't write screenplays, but fucking get on that shit. I want to read your Godzilla vs Kong much more than I ever want to watch this shit again.
And well, the thing is, what's more frustrating is when's the next fucking time we're gonna get a Godzilla vs Kong encounter? It's been over 50 years I think. I don't know when that last one was made, and this is what we got.
Yeah, but when you look at that one, there's a meme going around or a GIF or whatever of the old one, and it's King Kong shoving a tree into Godzilla's mouth, which is obviously really rubbery and not like that at all. And they're like, it was still better than this. And I was like, all right, you got me on that one, guys. I didn't see it, but you're right. It did at least look better than that one.
Do you have any other plot points or trivia that you wanted to kind of talk about? Maybe overall thoughts on this one?
For anybody who's on the fence of watching it, I would say watch it. I don't think that it's one of those ones to say, no, don't do it. But you really got to know what you're signing up for. I think it's, in my opinion, it could be more of a kid's movie. Mm-hmm. You know, it will take almost nothing for them to keep up. If I'm not mistaken, my nephews watched it and they had a good ass time doing it. But from what I hear from you and what I'm starting to sense is like, if you were really into this as a whole, meaning coming into a 4th part of these other 3 movies, you're going to be sorely disappointed.
I definitely was, as a fan of all of these. And from what I understand, with the Mothra and all these other creatures that were meant to be in this film, Warner Brothers has to pay Toho to use each of their monsters. If you look at the credits, there's a Godzilla and Mechagodzilla Toho credit, and I'm assuming as part of these budget cuts, they were like, look, we're going to have the skull crawlers because we own those and we don't have to pay anyone for that fucking shit. But this could have been huge. It could have been another monster bash like it was in King of the Monsters, and it's too bad. And I unfortunately don't think we're going to see more of it. We're not going to get a Final Wars version of this after this movie. And I understand it's doing really well for HBO Max. Subscription numbers are solid, and people that probably subscribe to HBO Max right before the Snyder Cut or during or after are probably like, oh, why don't I also watch Kong vs. Godzilla? And now we're going to see similar success with Mortal Kombat because people are going to keep their subscription another month to be able to watch that. So I maybe we'll get a sequel, but I'm not hyped for it if we do. I'm not too thrilled with the future of Godzilla, and at least in the US. I'll still check out some of the stuff that comes out of Japan, but it's too bad that it had to kind of end this way.
And now hearing that, I feel bad because I kind of took away from it. Like, you know, I have HBO Max. Obviously, I have it more for my DC backup. You know, I'm having trouble explaining to my wife how I have all these on DVD, and yet I still need HBO Max to keep everything. But it was there. So yeah, I watched it, but this was definitely not going to be a Snyder Cut situation where I signed up for it because of, or I'll keep my subscription going because they're promising number 2. But it is sad to hear, yeah, everybody who kind of got onto this board of like, this is number 4, we're finally getting something, is disappointed. I hope Mortal Kombat's better. Shit.
Well, I don't know, man. There are thoughts too that one was also cut down. It's all Toby Emmerich. He's the head of Warner Brothers and HBO Max at this. Well, right, he's under Jason Kyler, but he is in charge of the programming on both the TV and film side now of theaters and HBO Max, and he's the one who's been mandating all of these runtime cuts. He did it with 2017's Justice League. He did it here with Kong versus Godzilla. There's rumors he's doing it with Mortal Kombat, and some people are going, well, I mean, how much character development do we really need from these Mortal Kombat characters? And we're all like, well, more than Godzilla vs Kong, apparently. There's a cast of characters. What are you talking about? So I don't know. We'll find out. I'm gonna watch it, but I'm not holding my breath on this one. I'm not. It's anything coming out of Warner Brothers right now. I'm kind of disappointed with. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'll love Mortal Kombat.
If not, you also have Space Jam 2 to look forward to.
Woo.
That trailer dropped, and I was like, okay, King Kong's in that, so at least that guy booked his next picture before this came out. You know, that's what they say to do in Hollywood, so Kong's going to be just fine in the movies.
It's that's Ready Player 2, isn't it?
Dude, I swear to God, I had that same thought if I was watching this, and I was like, all we need is Batman to pop up, and like, we're fucking doing it. I think we even got a Batman Earth, if you will, right? Did we pass Gotham on his way down?
I know there was a Game of Thrones one.
Yes. Which is in all the worlds I'd ever want to live in. I would stay so far away from that. Yeah, it's cool to watch on TV, but I'd be dead within a week. A week is really giving me a lot of lean time. A week is if I get to hide. But other than that, I've been going through that show and fuck, it's brutal.
And the other thing that popped up in that too is the Iron Giant again as like a pretty major part of the film. At least that trailer, and then in Ready Player One, he is a bigger part of the trailer. I'm like, quit teasing us, guys. Are we going to get some Iron Giant project? What are we doing? Are we doing a live action one? Or is this all nostalgia? What's happening? But as a fan of the Iron Giant, I'm like, what are we doing? Are we doing something? Or why are you showing us this some more?
Grab Brad Bird quick and let's do another one. Like, obviously the hype is there, but on the back end, what I said, and I think is true, is that they're just cheap as fuck. And they made Ready Player One and they had all these things, quote unquote, sitting around on the computer. And they were like, yeah, let's get a double dip out of these guys. And that's what I think personally happened, but I don't make movies. I don't know.
To round out my thoughts on this whole thing, I mean, I think we've pretty much covered it pretty well. Let us know, though, if you enjoyed Godzilla vs. Kong. I think Godzilla fans were pretty happy with the film and with that fight. But let us know on Twitter and below if you're watching this on YouTube. And it's that's all I've got. That's all I have on Godzilla vs. Kong. I know I was hyping it for months, and I was really excited for it. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. We've got other great stuff going on later on this year. Mortal Kombat next month, as we already mentioned. But Nick, where can the Brokehead Corps find you as we close out this week's episode?
They can find me. I do, as you mentioned when you brought me in. So, thank you very much. I do a podcast called Buds, Bros, and Superheroes, one of which you've been on many times, and I thank you very much. And all that is on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, the normal internet stops, Buds, Bros, and Superheroes. Thank you very much for letting me plug that. I appreciate that.
Of course. Will you be covering this movie or Mortal Kombat in future episodes?
Maybe Mortal Kombat, because I have had some of people who were like, oh, you're going to talk about that? Nobody had asked me about this. So it was honestly, when you brought it up for, you're like, did you see this yet? And I was like, this is going to be my place to talk about it. Because if not, it's just going to be another 45 minutes of me going, isn't this kind of fucking stupid? I'm sure if I was given more time, I can completely go further off on this, but yeah, it was pretty bad. So no, I don't personally think, maybe. I'm just going to leave it up to a maybe. I'm not going to never say never. If I have somebody who specifically wants to come on and talk about it, I won't say no to them. But in terms of my agenda, no, I won't talk about this anymore. This was great. Thank you.
Awesome. And you can find Buds, Bros, and Superheroes on your favorite podcatcher. And also there will be links on today's episode as well. So if you're driving, you can come back to the description of the episode and you will find the links to everywhere you can find Nick. Otherwise, we will be at thereasonsimbroke.com. Tons of links on there Brokehead Core, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode. Thank you again, Nick, for helping out with the co-host spot and for this review episode of Godzilla vs. Kong. Everyone else, all will be well. After Palpa Kelly and I watched Godzilla vs. Kong, she really wanted there to be like a Kong family in Hollow Earth. Like, oh, because they gave us that promise too of maybe there's more of you down there and maybe there's home. And she's like, it would have been cool if you just saw like another female Kong. And I was asking her, like, how would you know though she was female? Can we do like the cartoony version, like long eyelashes and like a pink bow on her head? And I wouldn't have been surprised if they actually fucking did it in this movie. I would have been like, nope, fits with everything else.
Giant red lipstick, the long eyelashes. Yeah, might as well just throw a fucking set of tits on her too.
Orangutan tits.
Dress, it's something that we all know.
Hourglass figure.
Exactly.